Legal analyst. A lot going on today, Irv. Irv Miller's with us to talk about what we witnessed today. Your surprise or lack thereof of this decision from the jury?
I'm not surprised because when the judge agreed to give the second degree, that typically leaves the jury the option of compromising, or if it's guilty or not guilty just on one count, then it's no compromise in there. It's one or the other. This time, I was concerned. I guess they deliberated for like 11 hours on this case.
About 12, yeah.
So my worry then was there were three camps. There was the not guilty, the first-degree murder guilty, and the second-degree murder. That creates a little confusion in a jury room, but obviously they came to a conclusion for second degree.
Can you shed light on what the reasoning may have been behind, it seems, only introducing the idea of second-degree murder being an option in just the final seemingly hours of testimony and of this trial?
Because the judge really has to wait till he or she hears all the evidence before the judge can decide what elements are there. Are there elements of second degree that if the law says if there's some evidence of second degree, the judge has to give it. And there was more than some evidence of second degree. In other words, the officer had an unreasonable belief that he was acting in self-defense. That switched it from first degree to second degree. So I was not surprised.
Because for those who are not familiar, one of the differences between first and second is intent or pre-planning on the case of or how would you describe it in this case?
It's a question of his reasonable or unreasonable belief. If he had a reasonable belief of acting in self-defense, then it's a not guilty.
Right.
But if it's unreasonable, that lowers it from first degree to second degree, which, as Charlie said, is 4 to 20.
Right.
At 50%, he doesn't do all 4 or all 20. It would be 50% of it. Plus, technically, he's eligible for probation, but I doubt that that would happen.
Here we're seeing some pictures of Sonya Massey and body camera video of the night she was killed. And this is body camera of, as Charlie mentioned, one of the key witnesses in this, Deputy Farley, who was working with Sean Grayson that night. It's his body camera video that we are seeing here. And what was key, Irv, was in his testimony, Deputy Farley mentioned that at the moment, when this happened, he did not personally fear for his own safety, and that is contrary to what he initially reported in statements right after this incident happened, as this all hinged on whether or not these deputies felt safe or not. I'm assuming when you heard about that testimony and that change, that was a key moment for you.
He was a very important witness for the prosecution. However, he had some garbage attached to him. And the garbage is that police report that he wrote on the night that this happened, saying that a different story that he testified to. He testified he wasn't in fear. The police report, he said he was in fear. And he was there with Officer Grayson. And obviously the change in that made him not a very credible witness.
Is there a challenge in, when we look at Sonya Massey, she called 911 for help that night. We understand from statements from her family that she may have been suffering from some sort of mental health episode. In a case like this, what role does the victim's possible mental state at that time play in how the jury ultimately weeds through this information and makes their decision?
You know, I think in a situation like that, a juror is trying to put themselves in the shoes of the officer at the time. Was the officer, did he notice there was some type of problem? Was it a significant problem that he actually should have his hand maybe on his weapon? Or is it something like this where it kind of developed over a few minutes that the officer really became aware that there were some issues with her? And they try to put themselves in that position so they could, what's going through his mind? Would I be scared? Would I be justified in pulling out my weapon or using my weapon based upon what the officer was observing? So it does make a difference when you have a witness or a suspect that does pose some more than normal type circumstances for the officer.
Right. As in your many years of experience, and you've seen cases like this, I'm curious, what sort of reverberations do you ever hear about cases like this having within the law enforcement community?
Well, you remember Officer Jason Van Dyke shooting Laquan McDonald 16 times. That jury deliberated for 8 hours, and guess what verdict they came up with? Second degree. And that was frankly a shock for everybody. Everybody thought that was a first-degree murder case, but it ended up as second degree, and he ended up getting just a few years in the penitentiary. So I compare that to this.
Sure.
16 shots and he got second degree. This case, it was 1 shot and also second degree.
Interesting. Is there what from this trial, or what do you think the judge will be looking at, or the jury will be looking at, excuse me, as we get towards sentencing, which is scheduled for January 29th back in Sangamon County?
You know, the jury's role is done. It's totally up to the judge what to sentence him to. If this were a death penalty case, then the jury would be involved in deciding death or no death. But on any other case, it's strictly in Illinois, it's up to the judge to impose a sentence. And he has to stay within that range. Well, this way it's a long range, probation all the way up to 20 years.
Right.
And, you know, what happened today, I don't know if he did it, Charlie was in court, if the judge ordered what we call a pre-sentence investigation, which is a report done by the probation department, basically looking at everything about the defendant: social history, criminal history, drug abuse history, family history, and to try to determine and make a recommendation to the judge as what the appropriate sentence would be, take into account the facts of the case and taking into account the individual characteristics of this defendant. Obviously, he has no criminal background, but yet, you know, he did commit a crime taking somebody's life.
Right, so they will work in both of those things ultimately as we get to that decision.
Exactly.
Irv Miller, thank you so much for giving us your perspective and educating us on so many facets of this case. Now that we have a decision, again, Sean Grayson guilty for second-degree murder in the death of Sonya Massey.